Good afternoon, students. Welcome to yet another online class. I believe this is class HRTTP 121. Thank you so much for most of you guys having to hand in your assignments this previous Friday upon the 16th of September 2022. Today is the 19th of the 9th month. I hope that you guys are doing okay. Let me just quickly share my screen with you guys so that you guys can get to see what I'm seeing here on stage, or rather on the record. If you could not join our online class, don't worry about it. The content of this particular lesson will then be made available for all of you guys. So in your previous brief, guys, you guys were tasked with developing a concept for a news breaking show, right? You were supposed to note that the shoot, you were only supposed to shoot and edit during your summative assessment at the end of this particular semester. So the only part which you were supposed to shoot during this formative assessment was what we call the field reporting insert. And we'll break down what a field reporting insert actually looks like and how about to go with it, right? Great. You guys had to submit your floor plans as well as your field reporting insert. Now, let's delve deeper into what I wanted us to address for today's particular lesson. So in your previous roadmaps, guys, I wanted to know why you guys chose your specific concepts and whether there were a variety of shots and camera angles that you guys had used in your previous production. So we'll look at one or two productions that you guys have produced and then scrutinize it and delve into it deeper. And I know that you guys have done your pitch and you've kind of delved deeper into why you want to create your particular productions and what motivates you guys into that. Now, our point of discussion is that you guys, as part of your crew, use the 7 shots and as well as 3 different camera angles. So we'll delve into the 3 camera angles as well as the shot sizes. Does the story make sense, right? Remember when we speak about narrative, guys, we speak about the story. What is the story? What are you reporting on? What is the subject matter? What is the story? And what are you saying in your particular story, right? We don't want a documentary, we want a news reporting, or rather a field reporting insert for this particular production. All right. What do you want the interviewer, which is the third point, to experience while watching your films? Remember, guys, when we speak about how you want your audiences to feel during a production, we spoke about 4 aspects of relevance. General relevance, how are we generally emotionally relevant and connected to your concept or your news show? Conceptually, how are we conceptually or mentally connected to what you are saying or your story or your narrative structure? And lastly, what are we actually specifically, what are you actually specifically generally relevant to? What are you speaking to? Which aspect of human nature are you speaking to? Remember, when you are reporting, you are serving an informative role. So what informative role are you actually playing, and what other social surveillance, social problem are you then trying to then discuss and then unravel in your particular news insert? So I wanted us to discuss some of these things so that we get into the quintessential parts of this lesson. So before we get into that, guys, I want to show you guys what a news insert actually looks like, guys. So what is a field report insert? So I'll just play you guys this this short description of what a short insert actually looks like, what a field report insert looks like, and how long it is. In this particular instance, this field report is 10 minutes. We're not going to go through the whole video, but just to show you guys exactly what it looks like. So because you guys are in the field of broadcast journalism, it's different from shooting a documentary of some sort. So then in this particular instance, it's shot then as with our news anchor here, in the studio. As you can see, guys, one of the first fundamental things you see on this particular screen is the back screen, or what you're seeing on point, okay, which is the name of the news report. You're seeing what we call the Central African time here, which is 1 o'clock, which are some of the essential things that you need to have in a news gathering service when you are shooting your particular documentaries, or not necessarily documentaries, but your field reports, just to tie in with the theme as well as the concept as well as the genre of broadcast journalism. So these are some of the things to then look out for and some of the things that you guys should have right in the beginning.
Has heard that several people had to carry Senzo Meyiwa's body to the car after he was shot. Meyiwa's close friend, Dumelo Matlala, who was present when Meyiwa was shot, is continuing to give evidence in the soccer star's murder trial. Matlala says people had already gathered outside the house soon after the incident and assisted them to carry him to the vehicle.
You'd remember that the Senzo Meyiwa trial had started way back in 2014 with regards to the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. Now, what you're seeing here and what you're witnessing is different variety of what we call cutaway shots. Cutaway shots then kind of keeps the audience or the audience member consuming what they're seeing or what they're viewing on television, keeps the eye occupied so that the subject matter is not too boring. So because they're dealing with the Senzo Meyiwa trial, which is currently happening in court, and it's been a case that's been dragging with the judge and with the advocate there for an accused 1 to 5, you want to show cutaway scenes while the broadcaster, or rather the news anchor, is actually delivering the news report on what's currently happening in the case. And this helps with in terms of cutaway so that the eye does not keep into one specific place. So bear witness to actually have some of these cutaways and relevant cutaways to so for it actually enhance the quality of what you are, the relationship, or rather the quality of what we are seeing on screen versus what we are hearing. And this is done also with regards to what we call then AV script, guys. So just
but he could
bear
not
witness
say
because
how
of
many
those things.
people had helped carry Meyiwa to the vehicle before he was rushed to the hospital.
The strip must also be accounted for in your news productions, guys. So if it's the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, then write it there on your news strip, Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. If you're dealing with petroleum prices skyrocket. If you're dealing with a different subject matter, or maybe let's deal with war, COVID-19, right here, COVID-19 deaths high skyrocket all again. These are some of the headlines that I expect to you guys, for you guys to be then showing in your productions in the later sense. But I understand that this is your first time encountering these kind of things, but these are some of the things that I'd like to highlight so that you have them in your productions, so that your productions actually look more professional. We know, and guys, you're serving an informative role, so therefore then the audience needs to actually know what you are covering when it comes to the subject matter. So bear these things in mind when you guys are actually shooting your productions. Don't forget the time, the strips, the news strips, as well as the headlines.
Was shot and killed in 2014 in an alleged robbery. He was visiting the home of his then girlfriend, Kelly Khumalo. For more on this, we cross now to Griselda Lewis, who's been following proceedings at the High Court. A very good afternoon, Griselda.
Now they're crossing over to what we call Griselda. Usually they would do this, and the second camera would then cross over directly to Griselda. So this is the Griselda, and this is what your assignment was for, right? I was looking into this aspect of reporting, a field reporter who's reporting on the news to the news anchor in the studio. So they're crossing from a live to the events that are happening in a different location. So basically, this is what the assignment was for, guys, right? You were supposed to do something of this nature, to report on a particular subject matter, or to report on a news breaking matter that is happening around your area or around the country that might have not been covered in the mainstream news media.
What's the latest?
Well, not as expected. More details about what happened after Senzo Meyiwa had been killed. As you correctly point out, Tumelo Matlala, close friend of Senzo Meyiwa, detailing where exactly the blood stains were found inside the house. You would recall yesterday he had...
Bear also in mind, guys, when you are dealing with the issue of field reporting as well, we now know that it's happening in Pretoria around Gauteng. That serves an informative role to the public. And also bear in mind that this is live. So what is the time? It's 1:05. right? On point, this is SABC News. What is your news gathering service name? You put on your logo here and then write the subject matter, or rather the headline at the bottom here. So these are some of the things, guys, that I want to challenge you guys to then have in your new news productions in the not so distant future, so that you can adhere to the genre. A genre is a stable content category that pays homage to the specific style, specific genre, and specific form of storytelling. So just bear in witness. So guys, if you're shooting in Sentin, right there, that little strip there, it's happening in Sentin and so forth, guys. So let's go on and let's continue.
Detailed after coming out of the bedroom where he had hidden, he says that he went towards the dining area, and Senzo Meyiwa's body was lying in between the couch and the TV stand. Let's take a listen to what he said about the bloodstains when he was questioned about whether Senzo Meyiwa was bleeding.
Now, this is a second crossover of the witness with regards to the case. So you would imagine, what are you hearing on screen? So the AV script serves an informative role to say, okay, fine, what are we seeing on screen? We're seeing the relationship of when this Senzo Meyiwa character was shot, or rather the goalkeeper was shot, which is an actual case that actually happened in this country, which shook the world. We are seeing the bloodstains as well as the camera footages, or the images that were actually archived from the incident where Senzo Meyiwa was shot. But what are we hearing on screen, which is very important? We're hearing the subject, or rather the witness's voice in the background. So this is the relationship of the value of the AV script, as well as your crossing over from the field reporting inset to the studio, as well as the witnesses. So bear in mind, or use every cutaway shot to enhance the narrative, as well as the story in which you want to give. So think about these things when you view the news with an open eye, with the eye of a news broadcast journalism student in first year going and entering into the studio, or rather into the working class field of the creative economy.
It's what I referred to earlier on, that his blood wasn't flowing. It was just blood stains that were on the floor. Now, these blood spots were in relation to where the deceased was lying.
I would like to point it over to you guys that because on this particular instance of this peculiar case, there is a translator. I would always urge you guys as my students to always have what we call subtitles, right? Subtitles are little translation in terms of, if remember guys, news serve an informative role. So you're not informing people that you are assuming that only speak English. So then if you're going to conduct this informative role in a native language, it could be in Zulu, it could be in Xhosa, it could be in Swahili, it could be in Japanese, could be in any language. I'd advise you guys to always have direct subtitles, so that any viewer who's not speaking or is not familiar with that particular language then can have access to subtitles to then read what is going on. In this particular instance, they're speaking Zulu. I'm not much well up with the language that much. Because there's translation, I'm able to then understand what is then spoken. But then I would advise you guys to always have subtitles, so that the audience can read and write and actually understand and follow the narrative of the story of what's going on, without having a great difficulty in finding the relationship and understanding the relationship of what is spoken to what is seen on screen. So just bear that in mind when you guys are shooting your productions in the future.
It was on the floor where he was lying.
So then what happened next? You can proceed, Cassandra.
Well, also details, Nombo, about how Senzo Meyiwa was taken from inside the house. Tumelo Madlala says several people had carried Senzo Meyiwa. He described him as being extremely heavy at the time, And since they struggled to put him inside the car, they had to fold his legs. He says they put Senzo Meyiwa in the car that was driven by Kelly Kumalo, which belonged to the deceased, and says that at some point Kelly Kumalo was driving and speeding over some humps, such that his sister had told her, what cautioned her, because of the speed at which and the bumps that they had encountered as they were headed towards the hospital. And he says when they got there, they asked her for a stretcher, but a wheelchair was brought, and then they asked for a stretcher again. When the stretcher came, they took Senzo Meyiwa inside, and then now he goes on to describe when a nurse returned with an x-ray and broke the news of Senzo Meyiwa's passing.
You would notice
Okay, after a while, although
so guys, you would notice that they crossed over to Griselda, who is the news reporting field agent that's reporting of the matter at hand in a different kind of place. So for this, remember guys, reporting is about recording the incidents or having minutes of summaries of what transpires where you are so that you can report it back. You're not documenting reports, you're mainly giving a summary of bullet forms of a story that is transpiring where you are as a field reporting agent. Now you are required to do this only in 1 minute. So as you can notice, Griselda would then start speaking in intersections or intervals of 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then crossing over into what the witness is saying for reference, or what we call intertextuality. Intertextuality serves an informative purpose of confirming as well as referencing correctly so that your stories are in par with one another. Remember, guys, referencing is important to verify the truth. In order to verify the truth, you need to certify it. By certification, we are referring to the concept of intertextuality, or what we call referencing, cross-referencing with what is spoken with regards to what is reported. So these aspects, guys, should be reported in par so that there is no form of misinformation when you are reporting to the public, because you are serving an informative role and to inform impartially and correctly so with regards to verification, certification, in order for us to qualify what you are saying upon as a truth. So this is an example, guys, of what you guys were supposed to do in your particular assignments. Now I'll show you guys, I'll play one of the students, one of the first year students. I won't choose, I'll just kind of play whichever one, not for any purpose whatsoever, but just to kind of scrutinize some of these things, and then look at the difference from what we've just seen to what we're seeing now. So the first thing you'd see here, guys, from the producer is the time. Remember, guys, when you are set to produce this, what we call a program time schedule. Now, this program's time schedule also happens for news gathering services. So if you are given 30 minutes, right, as a news anchor, or rather as a news broadcasting service, to deliver news to the public within 30 minutes, your duty is to edit, cut, as well as gather information for that duration of 30 minutes, bearing in mind of the commercial ad breaks that will be taken in, or that should be taken into consideration within the duration of that process. So guys, looking at the time here, this thing, you were given a minute, only a minute, guys, to report on your stories, right? And what we're seeing here is we're facing a challenge of 4 minutes. Remember now, imagine if you had to tell a story within 30 minutes and you go overboard and tell it for an hour. Guys, there are other programs that need to play on a program schedule in the broadcasting journalism sector. If Generation is set to play at 8 o'clock and you are going to tell your news for an hour, we will cut you off because Generation has to play. After that, Isidingo would then have to play and follow after that. After that, there's sitcoms as well. There's boxing. There's so many news gathering services, or rather channels, that will be playing that deserve an equal slot towards your own. So don't exploit this time factor, and I'd penalized some of these students for doing that, because yours is to tell a story efficiently and effectively, so within the time allocated frame towards you guys. So bear in mind of the time factor. Look at I'd spoken to you guys that when you are dealing with a news gathering service, guys, don't shoot in what we call a portrait. A portrait is what we call this vertical scheme, because you see now what we are seeing here is the relationship of the subject. What we are seeing, the subject here, and the subject is shot in a vertical form. So always make sure that you place the camera in a landscape form so that we can see exactly what's going on, and that's professional, right? So that's why I always advise you guys to not shoot with cell phones, because now cell phones have this tendency of you guys having to shoot in vertical modes, or rather in portrait modes, because of habits. So shoot in cameras all the time so that you can adhere to the standards of broadcasting journalism. And what you notice here is there's no time factor, there's no news logo here on the fact on the screen. We don't know who is speaking here. We don't have a name strip. We don't have a headline. So bear some of these things in mind, guys, when you are shooting your news insert. If this person is an anchor, we should know that. So there must be some form of a strip, so that because you are serving an informative role to inform the public about the subject matter and the narrative, we need to know who this person actually is. What are they about? What is the subject matter, and what is the storyline? So bear these things into witness.
Producer of this campaign. The reason why we chose October as our muse is because she has a very unique story to tell. Her story has something to do with something that is very common in society, which is contraceptives, which is something that is used by 100,000 and probably millions of women, but we don't know the downside of these contraceptives.
Now, if you're dealing with contraceptives, guys, we're already on 29 minutes. This person here should be reporting live, right? This is the producer. Now, if you're dealing with contraceptives and the dangers or the side effects of contraceptives, we need to see some form of contraceptive so that the eye then is kept busy. Remember, we spoke about cutaway shots, we spoke about research. What is it that we need to know about contraceptives and the downsides? How many women are actually using contraceptives in the field of South Africa, for an example? You need to have some form of statistics or headlines. Start off the first 10 seconds so that we can know, okay, fine, you are informing us about contraceptives, there's statistics, you've done a form of research with regards to the downsides of statistics, and who is, most importantly, who is reporting on it. So that is 30 seconds, and we are only finding out now within the 30th seconds that we're dealing with the subject matter of contraceptives. But what about contraceptives is effectively explained then to us. But let's go on.
And most importantly, because this is something that is provided to us by the government, it is free, we do not have to buy it. So the controversy and the danger is there. How are you? Things.
Remember, guys, now these are some of the things that you're putting on screen. These things we can't read properly unless we have to hide. Remember, now you're given 1 minute, right? But you produce the thing for almost 4 minutes, and now we can't even read what you're saying here because it takes a split second. What is written here? The presenter could not be in front of the camera due to space in the room. Guys, filmmaking is about showing, not telling. You need to be able to tell us the story by showing it. This presenter, the main form of this task, the main mandate of this task is so that we can see this presenter, guys. We need to see this presenter. We need to be able to see this particular presenter who are crossing over to, who's reporting on the news. So don't make excuses to give us these things. Imagine having to watch this on television. The presenter could not be in front of the camera due to space in the room. Why could you not go and use a proper space? Because you're tasked to create a floor plan which gives you the relationship of where the cameras will be with regards or in relation to the presenter. So why are we getting excuses that the presenter could not be in front of the camera due to the space in the room? No, guys, we need to show. Storytelling and broadcast journalism and reporting is about showing. Showing rather than telling. Showing is more important than telling, and that's why we tell stories visually, aesthetically, so that we get to understand there's a relationship of what is said versus what is being shown on the screen. So next time, guys, I don't want excuses such as this, because the mandate of the production is for you guys, for us to be able to see this presenter, this news anchor. Now we can't see the news anchor due to space. What was the value of the floor plan in the first place? So think about these things, guys, when you are presenting the next time.
Thanks. Can you please introduce yourself, sir? So I am Nomcebo, 21 years of age, and I stay in Johannesburg. Thank you. We'd like to get straight into the questions. I'm not going to ask you anything too hectic. So
now, you want to save time. Already you've passed the 1 minute mark of the story. We don't know what's the story about as of yet. You tell you, the director or the producer told us that it's about contraceptives. So save time by writing in a strip of somebody so that they don't have to introduce themselves. Another thing, guys, this is not a documentary, right? In the form of the documentary, then I welcome you guys to then shoot a documentary. But this is a reporting live insert, right? Perhaps maybe composition could have been done better, because this person seems to be in their room dealing with contraceptives and talking about their own story, documenting their own story. Could this be newsworthy? Yes, it could be newsworthy, but we're focusing on what? What are we focusing on? On the downside of contraceptives. We want to know more about the research that is done on contraceptives. We don't want to hear about somebody's story personally, because it's not a documentary, it's a news insert. In that case, because it's a news insert, guys, let us see these forms of research that are done. What are the downsides? Speak to an expert about the downside. It's very informative, or rather, worthy of noting and casting the correct people with regards to the subject matter of which you're dealing with. Why didn't you go in with a doctor, for an example, cross over to a doctor about the dangers of contraceptives, for an example? It will save you much more time with regards to making it feel like a documentary at the end of the day. So think about the style and the genre. So this is a documentary kind of style, but the mandate, guys, was for you guys to then produce a news insert. So bear these things in comparison as well, or rather in mind when you are shooting your productions.
Our first question is, what happened? If you tell us from the beginning. So I learned contraceptives because obviously I don't want to. I'm still young. I still want to go to school. See my dreams.
Now, she's still trying to explain about contraceptives and her story, and we're seeing this in 1 second, and it's already done. Guys, I mean, these are some of the things that you need to be careful of. I don't need to, your audience doesn't need to be paused. You need to give your audience or the consumers of your content enough time to be able to consume the content that you're putting on screen. What is the value of, contraceptives? Contraception implant is a small piece of plastic that is inserted into your arm slightly under the skin. This acts pretty much like the pill and can last up to 3 years. Okay, great. This is a great piece of information, but this great piece of information could have been done here, or could have been placed somewhere here, where as part of the statistics, maybe, so that we get to read as well as listen to what your subject matter, or rather your subject, is actually talking about. Now, in the middle of them having to speak, there's this thing again. We don't hear what she's saying at the background. There's no relation of why there was that kind of transition. So transitions are important in telling that story. You need to know when to transition and why to transition. There was no need to transition in the first place, because she was still explaining what contraceptives is. So when you're dealing with shooting and composition, put creative ways of finding information sources to place them around the subject in the screen here. I mean, you could write all that piece of information here and we can read it. We can know the stream of a person here. We need to know the logo of the news as well. I mean, they're in their bedrooms and they're dealing with contraceptives, but like, it serves, it feels kind of like a documentary. And we're looking at the time now, we're already on 1 minute 23 seconds. So I appreciate the fact that you tried to use a different kind of camera angle to kind of show dimension, but this camera angle must be in line with what the subject is actually talking about. So bear these things into mind. Don't just use cutaways if they're not going to serve the informative purpose or the quintessential purpose of the audience, or the informative purpose of the audience, in letting them know what exactly you're dealing with in with regards to enhancing your story. So think about these things, guys.
For 3 months. In May, I went to the clinic and I told them that I wanted to take it out because it was not treating me well. I was always moody and my skin started like breaking out.
As skin started breaking out, show these things, guys. Show these things um, as part of your research portfolio. If this news anchor perhaps maybe had uh, uh, previous photos maybe of her screen breaking out, and we read about the side effects, or maybe the news presenter is reading about the side effects of these contraceptives. What can they do to the body? How do they harm the skin? Why do they harm the skin? Those are some of the things that you guys needed to play with regards to your AV scripts, guys. So that it doesn't feel like a long dragged documentary that lacks research. And I know this is part of research because this is what we call extreme case sampling. Sampling is where we get people to speak about their experiences with regards to the subject matter, as well as what they're dealing with. But in this particular case, guys, why would we constitute this as breaking news show? How many women have died from contraceptives? How many skins were damaged from contraceptives? That's something more interesting, more impactful, more women. I think it would have been more worthy to have more than one person having to speak about it, or going to the database of Statistics SA and getting to know how many contraceptives, or going to the clinic, consulting the World Health Organization with regards to the subject matter, because I believe it's a very important subject matter, instead of having to document one person having to speak their own opinions with regards to how the pill treated them. You could have a counter argument with somebody else who could argue that no, the pills treated me well in terms of contraceptives. My skin was even better, it was glowing, and so forth. So think about some of these aspects, guys, next time when you're producing your documentaries in terms of field reporting, and think about composition as well. What is more interesting to the viewer? What are we seeing here? We're seeing this subject in a room. There's nothing to look forward to. It's a black wall. Think about composition, guys. Maybe perhaps give them a chair so that we feel like there was more production value into how this production was made. Focusing sound. I can't hear what she's saying. Remember, guys, 60% of your production is sound value. So if we can't hear what you are saying, we immediately we are disengaged. We don't want to converse, or we don't want to actually even engage with your content because we can't hear what is said. I see that this subject, or rather this news anchor, or rather the interviewee in this particular production, is not wearing any mic, meaning that no mics were used, or no lapel mics were used, or rather boom mics were used for the clarity of the sound, guys. So sound is the most important aspect when it comes to film, because if we can't hear what the subject is saying, then what's the use? Because that informative role that they are playing, or that they're reporting on, is immediately lost. So think about these things, guys, and their importance next time when you are incorporating it into shooting your productions.
So